Hey there, everybody. We are doing something a little bit different today. One of the perks of living in Missoula, it's actually home to adventure cycling. We're known for mapping all these routes across the US, doing all this cool bike advocacy stuff. One of the other secret gems is they have an amazing bike-themed library. So that's what we're going to check out today. I'm going to flip through some bound copies of different magazines to see what was trending in the 90s, the 80s, and the 70s. So let's check it out. We've got Greg Seipel here. Will you give us a tour of the library?
I could probably do that.
Okay, let's do it. So if you guys don't know who Greg is, he is one of the 4 founding members of Bicentennial, which then eventually became Adventure Cycling. So very fortuitous that he's here, because he's also a bit of the resident historian. Is that still accurate, or?
It is. It's very accurate. Well, not the resident one. I'm the consulting one. Could I be in this part of it?
Yeah.
Just standing here and looking at a book?
Just pretend that you're browsing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There.
Oh, yes. I love to peruse the library, any library.
So tell us about how the library came about and what people can find in it.
Well, going way back to the 1960s, when I first became a cyclist, I was just in my teens, there was virtually no bicycle literature to speak of. I mean, there were no real viable bicycle magazines, and there were no real bicycle books, although there sometimes were books designed for children. But as time went on and bicycling grew, there were more and more books that actually published, sophisticated books sometimes, and books in all types of bicycle subjects, and they began to accumulate at our office. And after a time, this library began to grow and grow, and we felt it was necessary to begin organizing it a little better. Almost more important than the books, in my mind, is over here are bound copies of magazines. And magazines are very ephemeral, and that is, people read a magazine and they'll just throw it away. But a lot of times the material in a magazine from an historic viewpoint is a lot more important than something you might have in books. And a lot of the books are very repetitive in that they're books on how to fix a bicycle, and they're all very similar in a way. And they're route books, 25 routes in Vermont and things like that. But in the magazines you have a lot of ads, which are interesting, and a lot of articles that reflect what was going on in the time. So, and we had a lot of these magazines loose, but to preserve them better, we began putting them in bound volumes. And it's not only our own magazine, that we have here, but notably the League of American Wheelmen, or League of American Bicyclists as they're known now. We have theirs, and we have Bicycling magazine, and we have the Bicycle Quarterly, history magazine, and Bike World magazine. We have a complete set of those, and we have some magazines in storage that have yet to be bound. And another thing that's interesting is that on the counter of our reception desk up front, we have these books where cyclists are encouraged to sign in. And we have, 18 of these volumes going back to 1979. Wow. So it's really a treasure. So we have the person's name, their hometown, and what ride they were doing. A lot of these books came from an individual who lived in Missoula and who, on his own over the years, was collecting old bicycle books. And he was a merchant marine sailor. And often his travels would take him to England, and he'd search out these books. And some of these books are more than 100 years old. Okay. And we just have a little plexiglass there to kind of, protect them a little better, because they're a little higher value. And there's interesting, one of those books is called Adventure Cycling.
Is that where you guys got the name from?
No, no.
Well, do you have any particular favorite books in the collection?
Well, of course, one of my own is a book that my wife and I worked on, which is a 25-year illustrated history of the tour of the Scioto River Valley. Nice. Pick out. Oh, this is just an interesting book. This is a book all about the derailleur, right. The dancing chain. And think of it, this would have wonderful thing this is, that all, a book just about derailleurs. Wow. You'll notice that up here on the wall, this is the Peter Bauer Library, and Peter Bauer was a leader for adventure cycling for many years, and his photograph is over here. He was a great advocate and had great passion for adventure cycling, and he made some really big donations to the organization. And too, he even did some books on his own.
Okay.
These are his books. And not only that, the frame that's on this bike, an old Schwinn Paramount frame, is up on the wall.
Oh, nice. And
it's a Schwinn Paramount, but he had stenciled on the down tube USS Titanic. Now this is his handlebar bag. Again, it's in that picture, and he rode some tremendous number of miles with this thing. Like 20,000 miles or something with this handlebar bag, and it's like a it's a wonderful artifact.
Thanks so much for giving the tour.
My pleasure.
Okay, so I've been flipping through this big stack of books here for, I'd say, about 30, maybe 45 minutes, and there is a lot of information in here. It's actually overwhelming. Like, I just try to flip through them as quick as possible. I put some tabs on some kind of interesting trends that I noticed. I may have to come back because there's just too much, and it's like a virtual goldmine of cool, nerdy bike information. I had the intent of grabbing a couple different volumes from different magazines, but I decided to just stick with looking at Bicycling magazine in particular and seeing how it changes throughout the decade. So I pulled out a couple volumes at random. I believe this is 1974, 1982, and 1992. So it'll be interesting to see how Bicycling, the magazine, and bicycling as in the activity has changed throughout the decade. But before we get started, my friend Daniel pulled out this book, which I thought was pretty hilarious. Bikepacking for Beginners. Indeed, nothing is truly new under the sun. Let's check out some of the bikepacking tips back in, when was this published? 1978. In terms of cook systems, you were rocking your Trangia, which, funny enough, this is actually still my cook kit of choice. And I love this. You guys know I'm a big fan of minimalist cycling shoes and nothing but nice supple tennies here for clothing. I really do think I was born in kind of the wrong decade in terms of my preferences for cycling. And look at this. Pannier packing. It's a thing back then. They were doing it when they were calling it bike packing, and who knows, it might come back. So we're going to kick it off with this one. This is Bicycling, a bound volume of from the magazines in 1974. So look at this, guys. This was actually a big surprise to me. This is the cover of Bicycling in 1974, and look at what they're talking about: bicycling and the energy crisis. And I want to point this out in particular because it's super fascinating to see how the covers of Bicycling change over the years, both in terms of design, but also in terms of the subjects that they highlight. It's always a good indicator of the zeitgeist at the moment. So this is a cover of February 1974, and touring is on the cover. Not super racy cycling, but just some regular folks going out for a bike tour. Another thing I love about this too is the font, very party pace, I should add. And this might become a sticker in the near future. And I also love, back in 1974, like this conversation is still going on today. Do bicyclists belong in traffic? Apparently still have not answered that question. This is another trend that apparently was happening way back then. Bicycling patches. There's a whole ad here for different patches you can get for rides and stuff. You guys know that we sell patches of our own, and lots of brands do, but it was a thing back then too. This is June 1974. Again, touring cycling on the cover of Bicycling. And the first kind of bullet point here is cycling for energy conservation. I'm wondering at which point Bicycling now is going to have something like cycling for climate change, or when that becomes a forefront issue. In that same issue, there is this great article on sewing your own biking bags. We know that's a thing now with frame packs and feed bags and everything. But people back then, they were sewing, Paradise style bags, handlebar bags, panniers. This one I like for myself. Bicycling at one point was selling watches for cyclists. Some of you have noticed I'm a bit of a watch aficionado. I do have a small collection, but I do love this tie-in between a mechanical watch and a mechanical bike. That was Bicycling in 1974. Let's see how it changed in the next decade. So this is Bicycling volume 1982. I couldn't find the exact decade after, so this will suffice. On the cover of Bicycling in February 1982, it's a road test issue, and you can see they updated the graphics. The whole graphic style has changed, even the style of photography. It's kind of less literal and a little bit more suggestive. Already we're starting to see this kind of move away from casual cycling being featured on the cover to something a little bit racier. Throughout this decade, there were a bunch of ads for this product. I think it's pronounced the Bada Biker shoe, but I totally want these. Again, a very light and minimal cycling shoe. It does have a stiff midsole, but it is not the super bulky flat pedal specific shoes that we get today. I do think in terms of my preferences for bike gear, it is not within this current generation. Check out this thing. This is a pannier set by the brand Troxel. And they're hard case panniers, which is super interesting. April 1982. Still a little bit of touring on the cover, but still not as prevalent as it was in the 70s. We can get a sense of the shifting interest in bicycling. So this is June 1982. The cover reads, "A downhill California ride of new rugged off-road bikes." That's right. It's the beginning of mountain biking. There's an article here on the clunkers of Marin. Fat tires are faster than you'd ever imagine. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it? And this, I think, is the beginning of the dark ages, at least for me, for bicycling. July 1982, and finally we get full-on roadie on the cover. And I'm going to say it's just more or less downhill from here, at least for me. August 1982, we start to see this trend of bicycling as purely fitness, less exploration, less for the casual everyday cyclist. And what do we got here? We got a cyclist top off. He's got some kind of cardiac heart leads on, because bikes are sport, clearly. So this big volume here, this is Bicycling 1992. 1992. I think there's always been some kind of fascination with technology and cycling, but in this decade in particular, there was kind of this just, I'd say, over infatuation with the tech side and how it can make you faster and more aerodynamic. This is March 1992, and check out this article. It's a piece about the first specialized Future Shock fork. So Future Shock, as you guys may know, is the name that they're currently using for the suspension in their gravel bikes, but it was a fork back in 92. April 1992, so to the month here, and it's Power Climber. Become one today with 22 instant tips. So this is when bicycling transformed into kind of the men's health for bikes, if you will. So this is a pretty cool ad. This is for the Schwinn Crosspoint, and the copy reads, "I need fat tires like I need tail fins." I mean, I guess that was a thing in 1992. But the final sentence here, It's all here: road bike handling, mountain bike durability, high-tech componentry, and classic styling. All in one bike. My Crosspoint, the perfect bike for all the places I ride. Sounds like a gravel bike. June 1992. Get lean, get fast. Early 90s though, you gotta love the colorways. Check out the colors on this shoe by Merrell. I think I have a pair of Lems that are this exact colorway with this gray and teal and purple. Bring back these shoes, man. These would kill it. August 1992. Achieve pro fitness in just 10 hours a week. Learn 11 mountain bike skills from a world champ. Ride 100 miles in one day. We guarantee it. So again, you can see that trajectory of how bicycling covers bicycling. In terms of the 90s, more of the same. So that's it, at least for today, for this interesting walk down memory lane. Again, I didn't quite know what I would find, like how the content would change over the decades, but there's definitely a clear pattern. I think if you guys are into this video, let me know in the comments below, hit the like button, show some interest. And if I get the sense that more people are interested in this kind of historical, old school stuff, I might make another trip. Maybe delve a little bit deeper into a particular decade. Maybe pull out some ads, because that's kind of a really interesting way to look at what was trending at the time. What do you guys think of this trip down memory lane? Let me know in the comments below. Pretty cool that this library exists, that we got a chance to get a tour from Greg himself. Like the content, buy a sticker. Again, I'm a sticker salesman at the end of the day with a YouTube channel, and as always, keep the salt side down.